Guys, Leaf right here. Welcome to the channel, and today we're gonna be talking about my 3 pros and 3 cons of my semi brand new Lumix S5. So make sure you guys stay tuned. Alright guys, welcome back. So if you're familiar with my channel, you guys will notice that I've switched to the Panasonic S5 from the Canon EOS R. If you saw my last video, you will notice that. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And I have switched to the S5, so there you go. Alright, but anyways guys, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the 3 pros and 3 cons of this camera. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into it, and we're going to start off with the 3 pros. Pro number 1 is the video-centric features. And if you guys are familiar with Panasonic cameras, they are very video-centric. There's a lot of things I could discuss when it comes to the videos. I'm not going to get into all that because this would be a really long video if I did that. And a lot of things I love are the shutter angle ISO, so I don't have to worry about the shutter speed when I change frame rates, all the exposure settings that help with exposing your shots, the V-log, the 10-bit color, all the different recording options. I can go on and on and on. This is a very video-centric camera. I'm a video first person, so I love that how video-centric this camera is. Alright, pro number 2 is the photography aspect. A lot of people don't tend to think of Panasonic cameras when it comes to photography, but this has a 24 megapixel sensor and it takes very good photos. I haven't taken a lot of photos with it, but I have taken my fair share, and it takes really good photos. It is a great photo camera. The dynamic range, the raw files you get with this, you can definitely play with the shadows and highlights and retain a lot of information, and it produces a great image photography wise as well. So it is a great photography camera along with being a great video camera. So that is pro number 2 that I love about this camera. Alright, so pro number 3, and you're probably gonna look at me crazy about this one, but honestly don't care. The autofocus is actually better than I thought it was gonna be. Honestly, I thought I was going to dread making this decision just strictly because of the autofocus, and it has been surprisingly well. This is my 3rd talking head video, and I've done fully manual focus. You don't see the pulsing and that light in the background like you've seen with other Panasonic cameras. I've been mainly using autofocus, and it hasn't really let me down at all. My last video I was just talking about the autofocus, so you guys can check that out up here somewhere. My 2nd YouTube channel is my fitness vlog channel, and I use autofocus all the time with that, and it's doing very well with all that. You guys can check that out if you don't believe me. So that is pro number 3. I'm just very surprised on how well the autofocus is, and I couldn't be happier with it. I really thought it was gonna let me down a lot, and it hasn't. Alright guys, so now we have to talk about the cons. It's not a perfect camera. There is no such thing as a perfect camera, so there are some negatives I gotta discuss. And negative number 1, and no, it's not what you think. It's not the autofocus. It's not the crop in 4K 60. I don't really care about that. I don't need full frame 4K 60. The APS-C crop from 4K 60 works just fine for what I use it for, so I don't really care about that. The first con is that there's no shutter door over the sensor when you turn the camera off. After coming from the Canon EOS R that had that, I really miss not having that. I don't know how many times so far I've had to clean this sensor because there is no shutter door, and that drives me crazy. So that is con number 1. Con number 2 is a photography aspect of this camera. For example, like when you're shooting in manual, shooting photography, and you set your exposures and you're getting the camera ready to shoot, and it doesn't change the exposure on the LCD screen like I was used to with, you know, my Canon cameras and my Sony cameras. The exposure would change on the LCD, so I could kind of see what my image is going to look like. This doesn't do that. Maybe there's a setting I'm missing where it does do that, but I'm relying specifically off of all the exposure tools that the camera comes with, which is not a bad thing, but it just makes the photography aspect a little bit more difficult. Not crazy difficult, but I just have to be a little mindful of my exposure and use the tools that the camera gives me. But that is kind of a bummer that it doesn't do that on a photography aspect. And lastly, con number 3 has been one I haven't really experienced, but I imagine I might eventually, because I'm not a big external monitor person, but I do want to eventually get one and use one. And the micro HDMI, I haven't had the chance to use it, but I've heard so many horror stories about cables breaking because that micro HDMI cable is, or that micro HDMI port is awful. So I'm gonna go with that as a con, because with my GH5 I had a full-size HDMI. With my Sony A7S III, full-size HDMI. Even my Canon EOS R, it had a mini HDMI, which I've heard is better than micro. Not as good as full-size, but a hell of a lot better than a micro HDMI. So again, I haven't really fully experienced that myself, but I am eventually one day, so I am a little nervous about that. Alright guys, so those are my 3 pros and my 3 cons to this new Panasonic S5 that I have for about 2 months. I want to keep putting it through its paces and do a more long-term review, but so far 2 months into it, I've loved this camera. Again, it's not perfect, it has its pros, it has its cons, but overall it has been a great camera for me so far, and I'm loving the fact that I'll be able to grow with this, because there's, especially video wise, there's just so many different things that I can do with this camera. If I want to get an Atomos Ninja external recorder, even though it does have the micro HDMI, I have the ability to shoot 5.9K RAW, which is crazy to think. I don't think I really need that, but just the option to be able to shoot with that, I mean, hell, that's can't help but want to take advantage of that a little bit, right? Alright, anyways guys, we're gonna wrap this video up. Hope you guys enjoy it. If you're not subscribed, I'd love you to hit that subscribe button. If there's anything you want to see, leave a comment, let me know. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys at the next video. Have a good one.